I never thought one night, one desperate choice, could twist my entire life into something I could barely recognize. My name is Alec Rose, and this isn't just a story I read somewhere. This is my life, my mistake, my secret, and the night that changed me forever. It began on a Thursday evening, just like any other. My shift at the office had dragged on too long, the flickering lights above my desk humming in that way that made my head ache. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, laughing together as they left, leaving me behind like I wasn't even worth a goodbye. That's how it always was. I was the invisible one, the poor secretary who worked herself to the bone and still never had enough to show for it. By the time I stepped out into the cool night air, my body felt hollow, like I had given every ounce of myself to the world, and it had taken without ever giving anything back. The bus ride home was quiet, filled with strangers staring at their glowing phones, no one looking at me. No one ever did. And when I unlocked my apartment door, the silence hit me like a wave. No voices, no laughter, no warmth. Just four walls that seemed to press in closer every night. That silence, it's the kind that eats you alive. I tried to drown it out with the TV, with music, even with work, but nothing helped. Loneliness is a cruel companion, and it clings to you no matter how fast you try to run from it. That night, though, something inside me broke. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through my phone, looking for, I don't even know what. Distraction, comfort, anything to remind me that I was still alive. And that's when I saw it. An ad. Simple, almost harmless looking. Rent a boyfriend, just for the night. Safe, confidential. At first, I laughed bitterly. Who would do something so stupid? Who would throw money at a stranger for fake companionship? But then the laughter turned to silence, and then silence turned to thought. Maybe just one night, maybe just once, I wouldn't feel invisible. I tried to push the thought away, but it stuck like glue. My bank account was already stretched to its breaking point. $500. That's what it cost. $500 I didn't really have. But loneliness doesn't care about logic. It whispers in your ear until you give in. And I did. With trembling fingers, I clicked, book, now. The hours before he arrived were a blur. My heart hammered in my chest as I cleaned my tiny apartment, as if he would care about the fading paint or the second-hand couch. I must have changed my clothes 3 times, but nothing felt right. Every reflection I saw reminded me of what I really was. Poor, tired, unremarkable. I almost cancelled. Almost. But the thought of going back to silence kept me frozen in place. When the knock finally came at my door, my stomach flipped. I opened it, expecting, I don't even know what. Some ordinary man, maybe a little rough around the edges, someone who looked as desperate as me. But the man standing there was nothing like that. He was tall, confident, his posture sharp like someone who had never known struggle. His suit, yes, an actual suit, fit him perfectly, and there was something in his eyes I couldn't read. He smiled, but it wasn't forced. It was unsettling, like he knew something I didn't. For a moment, I froze. My mind screamed, "This is wrong. This is too much." But then he spoke, his voice steady, calm, almost warm. "Alec?" he asked, just hearing my name spoken out loud, like I mattered, like someone saw me. It was enough to silence the doubts. I stepped aside and let him in. The night unfolded in ways I didn't expect. I thought it would be awkward, forced, maybe even pathetic. But he asked questions no one ever asked me. He looked at me like I wasn't invisible. He wanted to know my story, my dreams, my fears. And for the first time in years, I spoke freely. I laughed. I even forgot for a moment that I had paid for this. But as the hours slipped by, little things started to gnaw at me. The way he held himself, too polished, too certain. The watch on his wrist, sleek and expensive, far beyond what a man in his supposed job could afford. The way the waiter at the restaurant bowed his head slightly, like he was someone important. These details flickered at the edges of my mind, but I shoved them away, because I didn't want the night to end. When it finally did, and he left with that same unreadable smile, I told myself it was just a night, that in the morning, life would go back to what it was before. Empty, silent, invisible. But deep inside, I felt something had shifted. I just didn't know how much. The next morning, I walked into the office, clutching my bag like armor, ready for another day of being ignored. My co-workers barely glanced at me as I slipped to my desk, just like always. But then, the air changed. Whispers started. Eyes turned. A ripple of shock moved across the room. And then I saw him. Standing at the head of the boardroom table, not as a stranger, not as the man I thought I had rented for $500, but as the new CEO, the man now in charge of everything, my job, my future, my life. My heart nearly stopped. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but his eyes found mine. That same unreadable stare, piercing through me. In that moment, I knew my life was no longer my own. And that was just the beginning. My whole body froze as his eyes locked with mine. The boardroom, the whispers, the stares, it all melted into a dull roar in my ears. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone in that room could hear it. I gripped the strap of my bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. He didn't say a word at first. He didn't need to. The silence stretched long enough to burn through me, long enough for the truth to slam into me again and again. The man I had paid $500 to spend one lonely night with was now the one sitting at the very top of the company. My company. My world. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. I wanted to vanish before anyone could see through me. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were bolted to the floor. And then it began. The whispers, quiet at first, but quick to grow. I caught pieces of sentences carried on the hiss of voices. Do you see how he looked at her? Why would he know her name? What's going on between them? Each word was a dagger. I hadn't even spoken, hadn't done anything, yet already the walls were closing in. My face burned hot as I sank into the nearest chair, staring down at my trembling hands, praying no one would notice me. But I should have known better. In an office where I had once been invisible, suddenly, I was the headline. The meeting began, but I couldn't focus on a single word. He spoke confidently, commanding the room, outlining his vision for the company's future. Everyone hung on his every sentence. Everyone, except me. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart and the suffocating sound of judgment in the air. And then, his eyes flicked to me, just for a second. It was quick, subtle, but I felt it like a lightning strike. My chest tightened. Did he recognize me? Did he remember the night? Or was it all just a transaction he had already erased from his memory? The meeting ended, and people spilled out into the hallway, their voices buzzing louder than before. I heard my name. I heard laughter. I heard disbelief. Her? No way. She must have planned this. Can you imagine? A poor secretary like her? I kept my head down and rushed back to my desk, my throat aching from holding back tears. Every keystroke on my computer was blurred by the weight pressing against my chest. Hours dragged like years. By the time the day ended, I felt like a ghost, trapped in a spotlight. But the nightmare wasn't over. As I packed my bag to leave, I sensed someone standing behind me. My stomach sank before I even turned around. It was him, Alec, he said softly. My name again, but this time it wasn't warm, it wasn't casual, it was deliberate. I looked up, my mouth dry, my pulse racing. Yes, sir? My voice cracked, betraying me. His expression was unreadable. Not anger, not pity. Something else I couldn't name. I'd like to speak with you, privately. My heart lurched. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to run. But he was the CEO now. He wasn't someone I could brush off. So I nodded, forcing my legs to carry me into his office. The moment the door shut behind us, the air changed. The room was quiet, but my thoughts screamed so loudly it felt deafening. I couldn't meet his eyes. I stared at the floor, waiting for him to expose me, to humiliate me, to tell me I had ruined everything. But instead, he spoke calmly. You don't need to look so afraid. I blinked, stunned. My throat tightened. I didn't know who you were, I whispered, my voice trembling. That night, I swear, I didn't know. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. For a long moment, he said nothing. And that silence, it was worse than words. It left me dangling, twisting in my own fear. Finally, he leaned forward. I know you didn't. My chest rose and fell quickly. Relief and confusion battled inside me. He knew. He wasn't accusing me. He wasn't laughing. But he wasn't letting me go either. Then, why? I asked softly. My voice cracked again, betraying every ounce of vulnerability I tried to hide. Because, he said slowly, almost carefully. Sometimes, the truth shows itself in strange ways. His words sent a chill down my spine. What did he mean by that? What truth? I wanted to ask more, but before I could, a knock came at the door. A colleague peeked in, eyes darting between us. And just like that, the moment shattered. I gathered my things and rushed out, desperate to escape. But escape was impossible. The whispers grew louder in the days that followed. People who once ignored me now watched me like vultures, dissecting every glance, every step I took. My desk was no longer a place of work. It was a stage, and I was the unwilling performer in their cruel play. And he didn't make it easier. Some days he passed by without a glance, as though I was nothing. Other days, his eyes lingered, and the air thickened with questions I couldn't answer. I began to dread going to work, yet I couldn't stay away. I needed the paycheck. I needed stability. But every morning, the weight of humiliation pressed heavier, until it was hard to even breathe. The loneliness that had once driven me to that desperate night hadn't disappeared. It had transformed. Now it wasn't just emptiness. It was exposure. It was shame. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of a storm I wasn't ready for. Because secrets never stay buried, and mine was sitting at the head of the table. The office cafeteria had never felt so hostile. I used to eat there quietly, unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. But now, every table seemed to turn when I walked in. The scrape of chairs, the hush of voices, and then, always, the laughter. I carried my tray like it was a shield, though it did nothing to protect me. I could feel the stares drilling into my back. Snickers followed me as I chose a lonely corner. She really thinks she can sit here like nothing happened? Pathetic. Maybe she slept her way into that desk. The words weren't whispered anymore. They didn't care if I heard. In fact, I think they wanted me to. My chest burned as I picked at the cold sandwich on my plate. Food had no taste anymore. Everything tasted like shame. I wanted to disappear, to quit, to erase myself from this place that had become a cage. But quitting wasn't an option. My bill stacked higher than my courage, and my empty apartment waited each night with its cruel silence. I needed this job, even if it was killing me piece by piece. Just when I thought I could slip out unnoticed, his shadow fell across my table. "May I sit?" His voice was calm, but it sliced through the cafeteria like a blade. Every head turned. I froze. My throat tightened. Saying yes would only feed the rumors. Saying no would make me look guilty. Either way, I would lose. "Of course, sir," I whispered, my voice small. He sat across from me, setting down his untouched coffee. His presence alone silenced the room, but the silence wasn't mercy. It was judgment waiting to pounce. He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving mine. "Are they bothering you?" I blinked. My hands trembled beneath the table. "No," I lied. One corner of his mouth curved into something between a smile and a smirk. "You've always been a terrible liar, Alec." The words pierced me. Always? Did he remember more about me than I wanted him to? My heart raced. I wanted to ask him what he meant, but fear held me back. Instead, I lowered my gaze. "It doesn't matter. I can handle it." His voice softened. "You shouldn't have to." And just like that, he stood, leaving his coffee untouched, leaving me drowning in confusion. I could feel the eyes around me, burning holes in my back. Whispers erupted as soon as he walked away. "She's got him wrapped around her finger. She must have something on him. No wonder he looked at her like that." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of them. I cleaned my tray and walked out, each step heavy with the weight of their laughter. The days blurred into weeks. The gossip didn't die, it grew. Papers on my desk were sometimes accidentally spilled. Invitations to meetings were conveniently forgotten. My colleagues stopped including me in conversations, as though I carried some kind of disease. And through it all, he was there, always there, watching. Sometimes distant, sometimes disarmingly close. Some mornings he would walk past me without a glance, making me believe he had forgotten Eva, writhing. But then, out of nowhere, he'd stop by my desk with a question that wasn't really about work. "Have you eaten today? You look tired. Are you sleeping enough? I saw you leave late last night. Be careful walking home alone." The others noticed. Of course, they noticed. And every question he asked me was another stone thrown at my already fragile reputation. I hated him for it. Hated him for ruining the invisibility I had once relied on. Hated him for pulling me into a spotlight I never wanted. Hated him most because part of me felt something I shouldn't. One Friday evening, when the office had finally emptied and the silence was almost bearable, I stayed late, hoping to catch up on work. The glow of my computer was the only light in the room when I heard the door click shut. I looked up. It was him. My heart stopped. "You're still here," he said, his voice low. "Yes," I whispered, "just finishing up." He walked closer, the air tightening with each step. He stopped at the edge of my desk, his eyes searching mine. "You shouldn't let them break you." My breath caught. "You don't understand," I said softly. "Every look, every word, they're suffocating me." "I do understand," he said firmly. "More than you think." Something flickered in his eyes, something raw, something unspoken. For a moment, I saw not the powerful CEO, but a man carrying his own secrets. A man who, like me, was trapped by a truth too heavy to share. Before I could speak, he leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. "They don't know the real story, and they never will." The room spun. My pulse hammered in my ears. "What story?" I breathed. He didn't answer. Instead, he straightened, his expression unreadable. "Go home, Alec. Get some rest." And just like that, he walked away, leaving me in the dark with more questions than answers. That night, as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his words echoed in my mind. "They don't know the real story, and they never will." What did he mean? What was he hiding? And why did it feel like, in some twisted way, our secrets were tied together? I pulled the blanket tighter around me, the silence of my apartment pressing against my ears. For the first time, I wasn't just drowning in my own humiliation. I was tangled in his mystery. And that scared me more than anything. Monday mornings were always heavy, but that one felt unbearable before it even began. As soon as I stepped into the office, the silence hit me. Not the normal morning quiet. This was different. This was loaded. Whispers trailed behind me like shadows. Heads turned, eyes darted away, and smirks curved lips that pretended to hide amusement. I walked faster toward my desk, praying it was just paranoia. But when I saw it, my stomach dropped. My desk, my space, wasn't mine anymore. Printed screenshots lay scattered across the surface. Dozens of them. Fake emails, fabricated conversations, edited photographs. Every single one designed to paint me as exactly what they accused me of being. His favorite, his toy, his mistress. The words were bold, cruel, impossible to miss. Someone had even scribbled across one page in red marker, "We know what you are." My knees almost gave out. The world tilted. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled as I grabbed the papers, trying to stuff them into my bag before anyone else saw. But I was too late. Laughter erupted behind me, cold, sharp, unkind. Guess the rumors were true. She's not even denying it. No wonder he always looks at her. I wanted to scream, to shout that it wasn't true, but the words died in my throat. Defending myself would only make me look guilty. And deep down, I already knew. They didn't want the truth. They wanted blood. I forced myself to sit, my vision blurring with unshed tears. Every click of a keyboard, every ring of a phone, every cough felt like another dagger in my chest. I wasn't working anymore. I was surviving, barely. By noon, I couldn't take it. I escaped to the restroom, locking myself in a stall, pressing my back against the cold metal. The papers still crumpled in my bag, screaming their lies at me. My hands shook as I pulled one out again, reading the twisted words. Why me? Why did they need to destroy me? But worse, why wasn't he doing anything? The thought hit harder than all the cruelty. He had the power to end this. One word from him, and the lies would burn away. Yet he stayed silent, watching from his high glass office, untouched, while I bled for both of us. I pressed my fist to my mouth to stop the sob that threatened to escape. The girl staring back at me in the restroom mirror wasn't the Alec Rose I once knew. She was pale, tired, broken, and I hated her for being weak. But weakness wouldn't save me, not here. That evening, when the office was empty, I stormed into his office without knocking. The door slammed behind me, my anger shaking every word. "Why aren't you stopping this?" I demanded. He looked up from his desk, calm as ever, like my storm meant nothing. "Stopping what?" "Don't play with me!" I shouted, slamming the papers onto his desk. "These lies, these games, they're destroying me. You see it, and you're doing nothing. Why?" His eyes darkened. He leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a puzzle he wasn't ready to solve. "Because the truth would destroy you even more." The room froze. My breath caught. What truth? For a moment, he said nothing. The silence stretched until it suffocated me. Then he rose, moving around the desk until he stood inches from me. His presence was overwhelming, magnetic and terrifying all at once. "You think this is about gossip?" he whispered. "But it's bigger than that. They don't hate you because of what they think you've done. They hate you because you remind them of what they'll never be." His words twisted around me, confusing and dangerous. I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense." He leaned closer, his voice almost tender. "It will. Soon." I stepped back, my spine hitting the wall. My chest heaved with panic. "No," I whispered. "I don't want secrets. I just want my life back." Something flickered in his expression. Regret? Pity? Desire? I couldn't tell. He straightened, his face unreadable once more. "Then you'll have to survive the storm, Alec, because walking away now would be far more dangerous." That night, I left his office more broken than before. The city lights blurred as I walked home, his words replaying in my head. Survive the storm. But how much more could I take? When I unlocked my apartment door, I found another envelope waiting for me on the floor. No name, no stamp, just my name scrawled in jagged letters. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Me, sitting in the cafeteria. Him, sitting across from me. The moment frozen forever, captured by someone who wanted me ruined. And on the back, in bold black ink, were 4 words that made my blood run cold. He won't save you. I dropped the photo, my heart racing, my body trembling. Whoever was behind this, they weren't just cruel. They were watching me, following me, waiting for me to break. And maybe, just maybe, they were right. Because I wasn't sure how much longer I could survive this. The photo lay on my living room floor all night, its message burning through me like fire. He won't save you. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every sound outside my window, every creak of the old pipes in my apartment, felt like a threat. I kept checking the locks, staring at the shadows, waiting for someone to strike. By morning, I was a shell of myself. My eyes were bloodshot, my hands shaking, but I still dragged myself to the office. I couldn't let them see me fall. Not yet. Not until I understood why this was happening. The whispers hit me the moment I walked through the door. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Some laughed, outright when I passed. Others just stared, their eyes full of cruel satisfaction. My chest tightened, but I kept moving, step by step, until I reached my desk. And then I saw it. A single red rose in a glass bottle. No note, no name. Just the flower, standing tall against the pile of fake evidence they had left for me days ago. I froze, staring at it. My heart raced. Was this from him? Or was it another trap? Before I could decide, a voice cut through the air. Cold, mocking. Guess she finally got her payment. Laughter erupted. A dozen voices joined in, filling the office with their cruel chorus. My cheeks burned, my throat closed, and for the first time, I broke. I grabbed the rose, stormed past them all, and ran straight to his office. I didn't knock. I didn't care anymore. I slammed the flower down on his desk, my voice shaking with rage. Is this your idea of protection? Of help? Watching me fall apart while you hide behind riddles? He looked at me, calm as ever, but this time I saw something different in his eyes. A crack in the armor. I warned you, Alec, he said quietly. The storm isn't over. And if you think this is about gossip, you still don't understand. My fists clenched. Then make me understand. He rose from his chair slowly, deliberately. His presence filled the room, and for the first time, I realized how much power he truly carried. Not just the power of money or status, something deeper, sharper, more dangerous. He walked to the window, staring out at the city below. You think they hate you because of me, but it's not me they fear. It's you, because you refuse to bow, Alec. You refuse to be crushed, even when they try. And people like that scare them. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I'm not strong. I'm breaking. I can't live like this anymore. He turned, his gaze piercing through me. And yet, here you are, still standing. Still, Lassell fighting. That is strength they will never have. For a moment, the room was silent. My heart pounded in my ears. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. But know this. Strength comes with a cost. And the cost is loneliness. His words hit me harder than the cruelty of my co-workers. Loneliness. The one wound I carried long before all this began. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask him why he was telling me this instead of stopping it. But before I could speak, the office door burst open. One of the senior managers stood there, holding a folder in his hand, his face pale. His eyes flickered between us, filled with a mix of disgust and fear. Everyone knows, Rose, he sneered. And it's only a matter of time before the board does too. When that happens, you're finished. He threw the folder onto the desk and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Papers spilled across the surface, photos and notes tumbling into the light. My heart sank as I glanced at them. They weren't just lies this time. They were plans. Documents twisted to make it look like I was part of something bigger. Embezzlement, fraud, things I had nothing to do with. They weren't trying to humiliate me anymore. They were trying to erase me. My hands shook as I stepped back. They're going to destroy me. the CEO, this man who had haunted and shielded me all at once, looked at me with something I couldn't name. Sadness, admiration, regret. "No," he said finally. "They can't destroy what's already stronger than them." I stared at him, broken and confused. "Then why won't you stop it?" He leaned in, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Because the moment I step in, it won't just be about you. It will be war. And you're not ready for that." Tears blurred my vision. My voice cracked. "So what am I supposed to do?" He held my gaze, unflinching. "Survive. And remember this. Truth has a way of outlasting lies." That night, I walked home with his words echoing in my mind. The city lights blurred through my tears, the photo from the envelope burning in my pocket. He won't save you. And maybe he was right. Maybe he never would. But maybe I didn't need him to. Because if the world wanted to see me as weak, as broken, as disposable, then surviving, standing tall, refusing to vanish, that would be my revenge. I made it home that night, but I wasn't the same. The fear, the humiliation, the scars of what they'd done, they would stay with me forever. But they hadn't erased me. Not yet. And this isn't just my story. It's the story of every woman who has been mocked, every voice silenced, every life broken under the weight of lies. So I'll leave you with one question. How many more of us must be destroyed before the world finally learns to listen?
Think about it. Could this happen to you? Some stories aren't just heard, they're felt. Behind every truth, there's a hidden fear. This story won't just shake your mind, it'll haunt your soul. Who could imagine the truth would be this terrifying? The story ends, but the questions stay alive.